This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you as always from the X-Zone Broadcast Network's Southern Command Post in beautiful Vero Beach and Fellsmere, Florida. And it's in Fellsmere, Florida, November 3rd through the 5th, that we are hosting the 4th annual Treasure Coast Para-Unity Conference. Hoping all of you out there that are listening, or at least some of you, can join us for this great event. Going to have some terrific speakers there, including our own Rob McConnell, who's headlining the event. Tonight, have the privilege of having one of our speakers that's going to be with us tonight to give us a taste of what she's going to show us or what she's going to give us at the conference, Miss Mary Strauss. Mary is a psychic medium, hypnotist, and spiritual advisor. Mary, welcome to Paranormal Stakeout.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Now, you're a hypnotist or hypnotherapist. Is there a difference?
There is a difference, and I'm glad you asked. There used to not be a difference, except that over the years, without being certified or going to school for therapy or some kind of therapeutic training, we weren't allowed to use that, so it's just hypnotist now. Okay, well, the reason I want to chat with you tonight is your other gift. You're a medium, is that correct? Yes.
And a medium, what is that? To kind of give me your definition of what a medium is.
Yeah, a medium is someone like myself who's extremely sensitive to energy. Energy meaning other realms, things that maybe most people are unaware of or don't seem to experience. So what happens is I'm able to communicate with the other side.
So you speak to dead people?
Absolutely.
Okay, what's the difference between a medium, a sensitive, an empath, clairvoyant? We hear all these terms thrown around. Are they all one and the same, or is there a difference?
No, there is a difference. There is a difference. With clairvoyance, you're definitely still sensitive to energy with all of those, but with the clairvoyance, it's much more of the psychic energy that you're picking up, things around the person, about the person. With empath, you're able to take on that energy of other people, of situations, things like that, strong emotions if someone else is going through them. But with a medium, you're sensitive to the energies of those that are non-physical beings.
Interesting. So you speak to dead people. Now, you call yourself a spiritual advisor. How does that fit into all of this?
Yeah, that's interesting too. It basically, when you work with this kind of energy and in this kind of field, because I'm a psychic and a medium, so I've got all the clairs. I'm sensitive to just about any energy that's out there. And so with that comes almost hand in hand for me, not for everyone, but the spiritual side of what's happening. Because what you start to see and understand is that this world, this three-dimensional world, the world that we live in, that we see as our reality, is only a small piece of what's really going on, where everything else starts to come into place. So you see things differently. You can kind of different realms, different understandings, consciousness, if you will.
Well, we're going to pick that apart a little bit in just a few minutes, probably after the next break. I want to go into some detail of that. But when did you first start experiencing this as a child, I guess?
Yes, that's right. When I was a child, I started seeing. Well, see, it's kind of interesting when you're a kid. You don't really know what it is, and you certainly don't know that everybody's not experiencing the same thing. It's only as you get older when you start questioning or realizing that it's different. But yes, having spirits come to me, or seeing people who have died or passed, non-physical beings from other realms, things like angels, things like that.
Other from different realms. Once again, we will be getting back into that a little bit later in the show. So you watch a show like The Sixth Sense.
Yes.
Was that you?
No.
Okay. Did you see people on the other side the way that character was portrayed?
In a sense, yeah. It's sort of. It's a little bit different, but yes, similar.
Okay. How's it different?
Basically because there's more to it. For me, one of the things that was different is I would have spirits coming to me all the time. Sometimes many of them at one time, to the point that it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Different times I had to, and remember, I'll let you know, I didn't have anyone as a teacher really about this stuff when I was going through it and growing up with it. I didn't know to seek anyone out. I didn't have books on psychics. I didn't even know what any of this was. So I had to learn how to work with these energies, how to turn it off, turn it on, how to channel them, how to send them to the other side. All this stuff I had to learn on my own, and it was trial.
Okay. Well, we're about ready to take our first break here in just a few seconds. But when we get back, Mary, I want to talk to you a little bit more about what it is you see and how it is you communicate and some things along those lines. We're going to pick this apart a little bit. So, folks, stay with us. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Mary Strauss, psychic medium, hypnotist, and spiritual advisor.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Mary Strauss, psychic medium, spiritual advisor. Mary, just before we ended the last break, we started talking about really what it is that you see, how you experience it. Can you take us step by step through an event, shall we say?
Sure. For instance, let's see, one thing. Usually, there's a couple different things. Sometimes what happens is the first thing when a spirit is coming through or coming around, I'll feel it on the left side of my head. Mm-hmm. The left side of my head will start to get really hot, and then I'll feel this like electrical current or an energy running up through my left arm all the way up through my body. And then often that's when the spirit starts to show up. Mm-hmm. Other times it's more random. I can be walking down the street, I can be grocery shopping, I can be driving the car, and boom, one will just pop in.
Okay, just like that.
just like that. All of a sudden, I'll hear something or I'll look over and there's somebody sitting beside me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
usually, oh yeah.
You're seeing a person, you're seeing a
Yes.
blur, an energy, but are you seeing a fully dressed human form?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Go on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but go ahead. I want to hear more.
No, that's funny because I'm a talker, so it's okay. You may have to cut me off once in a while. Other times, most of the time, they're just like walking down the street. You would have to look 2 or 3 times to know, okay, is this like someone in this physical realm, or is this someone that is past and I'm just seeing their energy?
Mm-hmm.
Other times they'll present themselves out in front of me and it looks more as if more like a hologram.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends on how the energy comes through.
What do they want from you?
Oh my goodness, they know. Here's the thing. If they know that you're open, look out, because you're going to get hit by a lot of them. They want to talk. They have a lot to say. A lot of them want to communicate with the living. So most of the time that I get contacted by someone who's passed or from the other side has to do with the people who are still here living, their family, loved ones. A lot of time they need to come through and help work stuff out. People who don't understand what happens after death. You get people who grieve for years for loved ones, or they don't know what happens. Are they really? You got religions that say this. You've got people that say that. Everybody has their own beliefs about what happens, and I think it can be scary and leave a lot of unknowns and grief to the people that they leave behind.
Mm-hmm. So these spirits want to give them the information, want to pass on what's happened. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Do they ask you to reach out? Hey, can you get a hold of my mom and tell her I'm okay? Is it that type of thing?
Yes. Let me, for instance, here's a story. It was just a typical Saturday, like any other weekend. I had my son and we went to the beach. We were in Jupiter, Florida. And so I'm there, and all of a sudden this woman shows up, a spirit, someone from the other side. And she would not leave me alone. She's like, I need you to talk to this. There was one other family next to us where we were. She goes, I need you to talk to her. I need you to talk to her. And I'm like, okay. And sometimes it can be just, kind of annoying, but they won't leave you alone if you don't. So I go up to this woman. I say, excuse me. I said, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but your grandmother's here and she really wants to talk to you. And she just looked at me, and I started telling her all these things that her grandmother needed to know or wanted her to know. And, usually they'll give specifics. She's giving me all these images to go by, this blue car and this experience and where she had traveled. This woman broke down into tears and she's sobbing. And she says to me, she goes, I never got to say goodbye to my grandma. She said, my grandmother raised me. And as I was flying from here to there, I got a layover. By the time I got to the hospital, she had already passed. And she says, my heart's been broken ever since. So in that particular case, it was very healing to this woman. And she was just so happy to have that closure.
And this was just a happenstance on a public beach. This woman didn't come to you. Okay. So what we see sometimes on TV shows, which will remain nameless, where the psychic just has somebody approach them in a grocery store, that does happen.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. It happens a lot.
Go ahead. No,
Go ahead.
Go
And
ahead.
the other side of that, then we've got maybe more the paranormal side or the ghosts. You hear about, what about hauntings? What about ghosts? What about these energies that can come through and knock pictures off the wall and do all the spooky stuff? There's two different things going on. One is you do have spirits that haven't moved on. So those are most of the ones that we would call ghosts. Okay, they are still very connected to this world, this earth. They don't want to really leave, or they haven't been to the light. And then you have another type, which is we think they're ghosts, but they're really loved ones coming in trying to get our attention, and we're so conditioned to be afraid or not to look into it any further that we just assume it's something bad.
Mm-hmm. Why Why aren't they going to the light? Why are they still here?
Some of them, what happens is when you pass, if you don't move through right away or go to the light, a lot of times what happens is the personality or the ego, the part of us that is very connected to this life, if we have too much to sort out, it wants to stay. It's not ready, so it resists against going to the light. There are cases too where I have worked with spirits where they didn't even know they were dead. Sometimes if it's sudden or it's quick, they're very confused. They don't know that they're supposed to go to the light. But the other ones, a lot of times, are just kind of rebelling against it. They're like, no, they don't know that that's the next step, so they stay. And they have strong personality. They still have ego. They still have all this stuff that would have, in other words, if they're a rotten person in this lifetime, and then they pass away, and they don't move on like they should, they're still that rotten person in, energy form.
But they still retain their personality, is what you're saying.
Right, in that in between.
Okay, here's what I need to know, Mary. What do they tell you is what does Spirit tell you is on the other side of this? Where?
So many things.
Give me one.
There's other jobs. There's other places to go. For instance, well, you get choices. See, here's where it gets kind of cool, is that the soul or the spirit always gets to decide. There's no rules. There's no regulations. The spirit is always the chooser. So you can choose to reincarnate. You can come back right away. You can go on to other universes. You can go be a teacher in the spirit form. You can help others prepare to come to life on earth. There's like so many endless possibilities. But this kind of makes you stretch your mind, because you're thinking, wow, you mean there's even more universes than this? There is so much. There's just
okay.
Yeah.
Here's where, and I've had some positive experiences with folks that are gifted. I've had some not so positive ones, mostly dealing in my work with law enforcement, frankly. But my question to you, Mary, and I think one of the biggest hang-ups that I see in your field is, how come we don't get the same description of the other side from all psychics that have a doorway, a pathway to spirit? Why are we getting different stories? And I'm going to tell you why that bothers me, because it tends to destroy the credibility. Okay. If I've got three psychics and they're all telling me a different story about on the other side, it's really tough. It's really, really tough for me to focus on to see what's real. So what say you on that?
Of course. What I think it is that we all have our own ways of interpreting the energy and what's over there. So you got to realize, too, with every psychic or medium or someone who's sensitive to these energies and working with their gifts, we also being human and also having these filters and these things going on, you've almost got to you've got to be careful. And this is one thing I've learned about being a really good psychic or really good medium, is that a person with these gifts, you have to step aside. You have to lay all of that down. You cannot have filters to filter the information, to try to make sense of the information. You really need to just allow what's coming to come, and not, a lot of us read, if you like to read, we've read books, we've went to conferences, we go to other psychics, we do all this stuff because it's what we're kind of into. But at the end of it all, I think a good psychic, without the filters or the hang-ups or the bang-ups, you have to let go of ideas that you have not experienced yourself. So, in other words, I could read 100 books by, another psychic that says, no, it is this way. As soon as somebody tells me anything after this physical world has to be, or it is, no matter what, I don't buy it, because nothing is set in stone. The only thing I know for sure that I have experienced time and time again that even blows my mind is that the spirit or the soul always gets to decide. So it could choose 100 choices, no choices, so it kind of goes on. There's no one set rule.
Okay. But people come to you and legitimately they come to you for a session, and the session costs X number of dollars, as many people in your position do. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got an individual that's experiencing some issues in their lives, and they go to you, and they're with you a session, but then they go to another person that claims to have the gift. They pay for a session, and they get different stories, or the individual that's giving them the information from the other side gives them bad information, and it causes the person seeking it harm.
Yeah, okay.
How do we avoid that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because there's a few. You've got the person. Okay, there's a couple different things here. One is first and foremost that you've got to be able to know how to deliver the information. Okay, even if it's not maybe what the person wants to hear. If they come to you for one thing, and you really need to be honest and tell them what you're getting, but you've got to be responsible too, and you've got to relay the information, yes, correctly, but there's a way of doing it, so I think that's big. And then also I feel that there are some people, I'll give you another experience. There are some psychics out there that are not spiritual psychics, or they're good psychics. They can pick up on that energy. They will tell you that you're getting that job next week and you'll get it, certain things like that, but they let too much of their own stuff in, or they haven't grown on their own path to elevate their consciousness and things like that. So you get a lot of junk in between too.
Okay.
And I think it's unnecessary.
Well, we're going to take another break here in just a few seconds. But one of the things I'm concerned about is that psychic that says, you're going to find your mate next week, or you got this job wrapped up, and it doesn't happen. And the charlatans out there, the folks that are giving that kind of information, that's the kind of thing that I'm also concerned about. So when we get back from this break, I'd like to talk to you more about that. So folks, stay tuned. A lot more information, a lot more good discussion with Mary Strauss, psychic medium. We'll be back right after this.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout tonight with my guest, Mary Strauss, psychic medium. Mary, just before the break, we were talking about people getting information that might not be accurate, but they're taking it as gospel. I think you'll agree that there are a lot of charlatans out there and a lot of fakers that are just trying to take people's money, for lack of a better term. Would you agree? And that happens in a lot of different professions. But I mean, I can remember that, there was this lady on TV, I can't remember her name now, but she promised her to read the future on the psychic hotline, I think it was called. Do you remember all that?
I think I do, actually.
Okay. How do we know Mary Strauss isn't doing that? How do we know that?
Well, in a session...
And I'm not accusing you, don't misunderstand, but there's no way to prove oftentimes what you're saying. So how do you do it?
No, I think it's a great question. I think people need to hear this too. A lot of times during a session, during a reading, have to be specific. So before even going into what's coming, or the boyfriend or the raise or the new job or anything like that, the first thing that I do, and this might be a good way for them to tell, even with whoever you go to or whoever people want to go to. is there needs to be information. There needs to be a foundation of information first about the person sitting down in front of me. I need to go ahead and pick up things about them and what's going on their life right now that are absolutely identifiable 100%. Not something I could have, got off the internet, nothing like that. Like going down to,
that's good, because there's so much you can get off a person on the internet that will allow you to make somebody believe you know more about them than they should. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I feel like that's the first thing is you got to establish a foundation for them to know. So a lot of times energy will come through spirit and visions, and you'll start to see, or as a psychic, what I'll do first is I'll immediately when I sit down with somebody, the energy, I start picking up the energy and I start seeing pictures and I start moving around in their energy field and seeing what's there. And a lot of times it's the basic stuff that comes up first. I'm like, okay, you have 3 children. Your youngest one is this old. She has these eyes. You moved here from here. You drive this. I'll give them enough information where they know that it's not, or I'll say something more personal or specific about a piece of jewelry or this, things that I'm picking up, where they will know, okay, there's no way this person could know this about me or my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is that I think that when I sit with clients, like sometimes I'll get, especially if it's their first time, one of the first things that I do is I make them feel comfortable,
okay.
And I let them know too that I get some people that will come in, they'll be just sitting up straight and they won't say a word. I mean, they want to be quiet, which is fine, because they think that if you say anything to the psychic, you're giving stuff away about yourself. But that's not true, and that's not how the psychic energy works. You can sit there and not say a word, and I'll be able to pick up enough so that you can see what's going on, and I'll give you a reading. But if you want a good reading, it's an energy exchange. So once I lay a foundation and start giving up some information that's coming to you, it needs to go, a lot of times a really good reading, you'll be talking with me. We'll be going back and forth, and be saying, oh my gosh, that's right, and what about this? And could you look into this? And it just expands your energy field, and you can get more information for that person.
And I guess that's part of what worries me a little bit, because even if in this day and age, taking out the internet and Google, whatever, I mean, you can be 50% of the time on a person and their very basic needs or situations in life.
Yes.
So how do you get past that part of it? I mean, if somebody's coming to you for a reading, you got to believe that there's something going on in their lives. So that gives you almost an advantage right away. So how do you get past the common stuff?
Yeah. Again, you kind of start with the common stuff, and that gives them the okay. They start to loosen up a little bit, and they're like, all right, well, she knows this and she knew that. And then sometimes the information just comes in so strong, you just start nailing stuff. Like, I don't always know until I'm sitting in front of you, and all of a sudden, all the stuff will start coming through. Mm-hmm. Specifics, down to specifics that only that person and their husband would know, or that, their parents would know, or somebody that was really close to them. So you get into the specific things, and where there's no way that you could have known those things or guessed, or even if you're a great reader of body language, you get all these you can go, all these trainings, and people can be really good at what they do and not be psychic. But another thing that happens is
I've seen a lot of con artists do that, and that's why I got to ask those questions. They're just good. They know people, and when you're a student of people, you can sometimes ask these questions, and people will think, "Wow, you're reading into my soul."
Exactly. And another thing too, I would say for the person or the client who's coming for the reading, one thing that you definitely want to do is you always want to feel comfortable. You don't just, if you get referred to a psychic or a medium because, the guy down the road went and they had a great experience, and you go and you don't feel, and you're not really feeling it, or you're not feeling the good connection, it may mean that it's not the right psychic for you, or it's not the right medium. And I think that's really important too, to have a really good experience. You got to trust your own intuition, basically.
Yeah. Okay. You ever had anybody tell you during a session, or that were observing a session, you're full of baloney?
No,
You've never had anybody question you at all?
never.
Okay. All right. How have you ever been in a situation where you've given an individual wrong information, and it's
No.
or have you known anybody that's done that?
Um, well, here's what I haven't known anybody personally that has done that, but what I have had is I've had several clients come to me that have gotten bad or wrong information from another psychic. Now, I particularly in these cases, I think there's been 4 cases where I didn't know I didn't know of or know the name of the person who they had seen, but one woman came rushing in and was in tears and hysterics, and she had just left the psychic and told her all these horrible things, and I said, oh, it was, yeah. So then I sat down with her and did a reading for her, and it changed everything.
Well, that's got to be one of the biggest obstacles in your profession, are people that are trying to bilk others.
Definitely. Well, and I'm telling you, it does happen. So you do have to be careful.
Well, it does happen, and what worries me is, once again, thinking about it from my law enforcement side, that's harmful to folks, and that's why I'm really concerned. How do you? I know what you said about making people comfortable and the readings and what you're seeing, but how in the world can you prove Mary Strauss is giving the right information? Is there any way?
Well, they pretty much get to prove it.
Okay.
And yes, actually there is. And it's really with the person or the individual, the client who is receiving the information. Because they are going to, a lot of times during the session, they will give the feedback to be like, no, you're exactly right. And then they'll want you to look in even deeper, or they'll give you, well, what do you see about this? So they're getting instant confirmation over and over again. Then I've had a few clients that, it's been a wonderful reading. They wrap it up. I might not hear from them for like 2 or 3 months. They'll call me up. Oh my goodness, you're never going to believe this. Guess what happened? Everything you said, or, all this stuff happened exactly. And they're just so thrilled and so excited. And they're like, well, it was a great reading, but I didn't know. You kept saying I was going to move next month, and I didn't know what you were talking. No, we hadn't thought. And then next thing you know, the husband gets a job. They have to move within 2 weeks. And so it's little things like that.
Well, what could cause you to say, look, I believe you're going to find the love of your life next week, or you're going to get this new job. I see it, and it doesn't happen.
And then it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason it doesn't happen on occasions, if I read you and I said, no, I really see this working out. I really think you're going to get this job, or you're going to meet this partner in 2 months. And that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that goes down to, what path, there is something also to this energy and movement of where we are. So even if everything that I read, I'm looking at one timeline, I'm looking at one direction. If you say, if all of a sudden you start making other decisions or changing your mind, and now you're going here and you're doing this and you're moving. So now you've just changed everything that could have possibly happened. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you're giving a vision of what you're seeing now, but that person could change it by their own actions. Have I got that right?
Yes, and to a certain degree, though. But there are other things that no matter which direction that are set, and that's more getting into more of a soul or spiritual level, that if the soul wants this to happen, I don't care how you read it or where you move or if you change your name or anything, it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, let's change gears a little bit here now. What is a ghost? What is your definition of a ghost?
Yeah, I would kind of going back to earlier, that is definitely a spirit that has not fully transitioned. Okay. And a lot of times they still feel like, for instance, if it's a house, I do get called to clear houses and do things like that. A lot of times if they're, strongly connected to that property or that home, they feel that that's theirs. We think that we're the intruders because they haven't realized what's happened and they're supposed to move on.
Okay. If so, since your belief is that a ghost is the spirit or the soul of the departed, tell me your definition or your view of this theory of dimensions. That's a big thing that's really taken a hold here in the paranormal research world, are different dimensions, not so much spirits, but literally parallel dimensions or realms. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yes. Well, and for me, that all comes from just experience, and what I know, what I see, what I've had contact with. It's really unbelievable sometimes to be in to be in my shoes. But that's what really got me seeing it, because I was trying to understand like all these different beings and entities that were coming in and different things that were going on. That there's different timelines and different dimensions, and a lot of it, well, the dimensions, I would say, that kind of explain that there's more than just this life that we feel we're living right now, and it's happening. And these entities from other realms can absolutely pop in and out and visit.
Well, and we're getting a little short in time. We're getting ready to come up on our next break here in just a few seconds. But I'm going to be curious, and I'll ask you this when we come back. There are those that believe that there are parallel universes. In other words, there's a Mary Strauss here and a Mary Strauss in a dimension that's running parallel. And sometimes they indeed cross each other. So when we get back in a couple minutes, Mary, I want to get your opinion on that. And then I want to talk a little bit about the 4th Annual Para-Unity Conference on the Treasure Coast. So we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. So folks, stay with us, and we'll be right back.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back to this last segment on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Mary Strauss. And Mary, we were talking about parallel dimensions a moment ago, and there's this theory out there now that ghosts really aren't even spirits, but merely us or folks that we know in a parallel dimension. Got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it is interesting, and I think that there's still a lot unknown that needs to be investigated through experience. But I'll tell you, there's definitely parallel realities going on at the same time, or parallel lives, for sure.
Yeah, have you experienced that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, so one instance, which was absolutely phenomenal, because here we go, with just kind of caught me off guard. Out to lunch with a friend of mine and her husband, and it was just a normal day. We're eating lunch. We step out of the restaurant. Now, mind you, her husband is not into this. He doesn't have the gifts. He's not really necessarily spiritual or anything like that. Just a car salesman, and his wife is more into the stuff that I'm into, but that's just a little background. So he is not psychic. He's not medium. He's none of these things at all. So we finish with lunch. We step out of the restaurant, and immediately we're in a whole nother reality. Immediately the town is changed. It's not even the same town. The people, it's not even the same time frame that we were living in. Everything was completely different. People are walking up and down the streets. He's kind of freaking out because he grabs a hold of my hand and he's like, "What's going on? And do you see this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I see it. I'm kind of used to strange things happening." This guy was not at all. And these people are walking by and they're approaching him, and he's like, "Well, what do I do?" They're trying to talk to him. Well, just talk to them. And as they were, and he's just.
Well, what are you seeing? What are you seeing, Mary? What's the difference in what you're seeing?
The people, the town is different. The people everything looks real. They're real people. They don't look like ghosts. They don't, very, very real. And the time frame was different. It was like a totally different time period. These people walking up to him were talking to him about how they were approaching him with great honor and respect, and one of them mentioned something about him being the mayor of the town. And meanwhile, he's kind of freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. And I'm telling him, we'll just talk to the people and see what's going on. And the people are coming up to me and talking to me. And I'm trying to figure out, who am I in this realm or this timeline that these people are so interested in and want to talk about? And it was pretty wild.
Well, you understand that most folks you tell that story to would think you probably had a little bit of something interesting to drink at lunch.
Absolutely.
So
we were
go on.
Had my friend and her husband, especially with him, because, like I said, not having these gifts, not really being interested in any of this stuff, not reading the books or knowing any of this stuff, and to walk out and have that experience and have it at the same time was pretty phenomenal. I think it really changed the way he looked at things, for sure. Now,
his wife was there too. Did she experience anything?
She did not experience what we experienced, but when everything kind of disappeared, or we came back to our reality, our timeline, I asked her, we were both like, her husband was freaking out, just totally blown away. And I asked, was she there? And she says, no. But while we were having that experience, she immediately came in contact with a spirit and was receiving information, and for her personally, information regarding, things for her life and her future.
That's a pretty fantastic story, Mary. Now, these people are friends of yours. I'm certainly not going to ask names, but do they ever talk about this experience with other folks?
I don't know if he did. I don't know if he wanted to mention it to anybody. His wife and I certainly did. Well, but we're more comfortable with sharing this kind of stuff.
It's interesting because you're the first person that have these gifts that I've ever heard describe an event like this, and I'm not quite sure how to take it, to be honest with you, because that's pretty fantastic, if not far-fetched. Have you seen this person since then? Did it affect him in any way?
Definitely. No, it definitely did. I feel like it kind of opened up his mind to a lot more of this stuff. I think it kind of shook him into his belief system about that there's so much more out there, where before I believe he didn't really, that was fine that his wife is into this and that all her friends are into it, but it wasn't really his thing. So yeah, it kind of made him more of a believer, or at least opened his mind to the possibilities that there's so much more than what we experience with our five senses.
Well, I consider myself to have a pretty open mind. Certainly, the field that I'm in paranormal research, I certainly don't discount anything. That's a pretty fantastic story, though. Have you ever had anything like that happen before or since?
That I've had a few, not as extreme as that one. I have had times when I have definitely run into other timelines, where, for instance, it's standing in line at the grocery store, or there's another time when I was just walking. I was taking the dogs for a walk, and all of a sudden, it was a little bit different than that one, but all of a sudden, it was like everything shifted. Everything around me, almost, it was bizarre. It almost felt like everything had turned almost cartoon, like it wasn't real. It was very rubbery. It had no real feeling to it, and
Okay.
all this other stuff and energies were coming in. It was crazy.
Well, that's got to rank right up there with probably one of your more memorable paranormal experiences.
That one was wild.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because again, it's so fun. It's strange being in in my shoes. I'll say that. I have things that happen that would just
What's your most frightening experience?
One of my most frightening experiences was when I was in my late teens. I think I was 19, and I still didn't have a very strong understanding about my gifts and how they worked. And I did have one time. There was one time I had woken up dead out of a sleep. I woke up because I could feel that something was around me or by me. And I look up, of course, because I'm laying on my back, and I look up, and there was this energy, this dark gray energy, and it almost looked like a cloud spinning, like a cyclone or something spinning, but it was really, really dark. And it as it moved, it got a face, and as it got a face, it was communicating, but not in this language. It was like anyways. At the same time, of course, I was held down. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't blink. I mean, I was eyes open, and every time I tried to move, it would hold. It would press me back down, and it seemed to last. I'm sure it didn't last very long, but it seemed to last for me a long time, and I was terrified at the time. And when it finally went away, and I could catch my breath and get up, and then yeah, that was probably my scariest one.
Wow, it sounds like it. And now, do you participate in paranormal investigations, ghost hunts, if you will?
Not many. I haven't had the opportunity to do many of those. No, most of what I get called out to do is clear or clean houses for people that they have, hauntings and stuff.
I am really, really looking forward to having you at the conference. I got some other questions I'm dying to ask you that we're just not going to have time tonight on the show. But, anybody out there that can join us in Fellsmere November 3rd through the 5th for the 4th Annual Treasure Coast Para-Unity Conference, you can find information on that at my website, www.indianriverhauntings.com, and certainly on the X Zone Broadcast Network's website. The flyers there also. So I'd encourage you to come on out and join us if you can. Our guest here, Mary Strauss, invites you to check her Facebook out, Mary Strauss Psychic Medium. Do you have any other websites or any spots they can look for you at, Mary, to find more about you?
Website is being redone right now, but it will be marystrauss.com. So, but right now, Facebook is pretty much it. Mary Strauss, and yeah.
Okay. And like you to get a chance, everyone out there, check out the terrific broadcast schedule at www.xzbn.net for all the other shows that you'll find in the X Zone Broadcast Network. Would also like to invite you to my website, www.paranormalstakeout.com. Mary, as we wrap up real quick, give us a hint what we're going to hear from you in November.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this event, and I'm so glad I was invited to come and join you guys. And yes, I think it's going to be wonderful. If you have the opportunity, whoever's listening, definitely come out. We've got some great speakers. I'm going to be speaking on past life experiences, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, that's going to be enjoyable. And don't forget, folks, our own Rob McConnell is our keynote speaker. So come on out and hear the X Zone Broadcast Network's boss sharing with us his wisdom. As always, I appreciate everybody being here tonight and listening to the show. And we will see you next week on Paranormal Stakeout. See everybody on the other side. Good night.